Welcome back, folks, to the WP-Tonic Wednesday show. It's episode 271. We've got a great guest. Unfortunately, my co-host, Kim, couldn't make it, but she'll be hosting the show next week. So you'll have her company next week, folks. But we've got a great guest. We've got Jason Rodriguez. I've just butchered his surname. I apologise. Jason, would you like to introduce yourself quickly to the audience?
Sure. Yeah. Thanks, Jonathan. So I'm Jason Rodriguez. I am a community evangelist for Litmus. Litmus is a software company. We work on building software tools for email marketers, email designers, so that they create and send better emails for everybody. Outside of that, I think about email pretty much all day, every day, which sounds a little bit weird. A lot of people don't do that, but that's definitely me. I've written a couple of books on email design and coding, speak at different conferences across the industry around the world, and just kind of generally try to educate people more about the web and email.
Yeah, you do a great job with that, Jason. Great.
Thanks.
Before we go into the interview, I just want to mention our major sponsor, which is Kinsta Hosting, and WP-Tonic's own website is hosted on Kinsta. They're a great WordPress only focused hosting company. We've been with them for now a couple of months. Been totally happy with their service, and the support has just been fantastic. And they're just great people in general. Know a couple of them personally, really like them, and I would highly suggest that you should use them as well. You'll find links on the WP-Tonic website. They are affiliate links, so you'll be helping the show if you book your hosting through Kinsta or your clients. And like I say, we've been totally happy with them. On to the show. So you wrote a little post, which we actually discussed on our roundtable show last week.
Oh, nice.
We had a bit of discussion about it. And the title's on AMP for email. Would you like to give a quick synopsis of the post and maybe
Sure.
dive into it a bit?
Yeah, definitely. So for anybody that's not familiar with AMP or AMP, that's Accelerated Mobile Pages, which is an initiative that Google launched a little while back with the intention of improving the mobile web for everybody. So the idea is that using AMP, which is kind of a more restricted version of HTML and JavaScript, that you could serve faster pages for mobile browsers, which is good because everybody knows, the mobile web is a little bit tricky. It has data constraints, it has slower loading times, all that stuff. So AMP was kind of created to address that issue. But one of the problems with AMP is that it's almost entirely controlled by Google, and they use it to do some interesting things. It definitely works well for that goal of speeding up pages for the most part. But they also use it to kind of promote pages using AMP higher in their search results, in that search carousel on the Google search page. So it's kind of this like carrot and stick for developers to get people sucked into using AMP, which is controlled by Google, is very tightly coupled with Google's search engine. So there's been kind of a mixed bag of reactions across the web world, the development world, the publishing world on AMP. And one of the biggest things recently is they announced that they're using AMP for email now. So they open up a developer preview inside of Gmail where developers can take advantage of some of these AMP features inside of emails, inside of the inbox, to provide things like interactivity inside of email. So they had a couple of examples that they published on their blog post. I think there was Pinterest that was showing a Pinterest board where you could save different pins to your actual board. You could categorize them directly inside of Gmail, which was pretty cool. The one I really liked was, I think it was Booking.com that had a list of hotels that you could refresh inside of Gmail. So if you were looking for hotels or, flights or something like that, then you could get these dynamic results right inside of the inbox. So the AMP for Email project is all about adding these interactive elements inside of email. So that was announced, I want to say a week or two ago. And so there's been a lot of reaction from the email world, from the web development world about this AMP for Email project. So my post is kind of going over my personal reaction to that. And my personal reaction is really, I like that Gmail and Google, the team is working on adding interactivity to email. But I am not a fan of the way that they're doing it with AMP because it kind of goes against the grain of the web. It's taking HTML and stripping it down and using this very proprietary version of it, which is something that the email world and the web world, I think, doesn't really need because we have HTML, we have CSS. So adding a third language on top of that people have to learn and then maintain and support going forward causes a lot of issues, a lot of maintenance issues, a lot of work that people need to start doing. But in the email world specifically, there's definitely some hurdles for this AMP for email project getting off the ground. And that's the fact that this requires a third MIME type for developers to start supporting. So if you're sending an email marketing campaign, there's two versions that you're typically sending. You're sending the HTML version, and then you're sending the plain text version. So your email program will take that and display whatever you've requested to see for those emails. But for this AMP for email project adds a third version, which is that AMP specific version. So it uses its proprietary code. You're creating this third version that you then have to figure out how to send. So right now, no email service providers, those companies that you use to send these email marketing campaigns, support that third version. So that's a huge hurdle to actually getting those emails out the door. So that's one big thing I really think is gonna kind of stop this from taking off. The other thing is it's just kind of, it goes against the kind of ethos of the web and this open source community. People using HTML and CSS, these well-supported web standards to create these things. And while AMP, the project is open source and people can contribute to it, it's very much controlled by Google and is kind of built to serve their interests, which I think is definitely a dangerous game to play as well. So there's definitely a lot that goes into it. There's arguments for and against it. But I'm definitely, right now, as it stands, kind of in the camp of being against this AMP project, especially in relation to the email world.
That's a great synopsis. Thank you so much, Jason. I can tell you're a true expert on this. That was fantastic. Like yourself, I'm so kind of torn between the two. I was quite vigorous in my criticism of Google on the Friday show where we discussed your post. Mm-hmm. But on reflection, you're a bit torn because the actual functionality is cool in some ways, but it comes with such a high price, doesn't it?
Yep.
That's the problem, and you just can't deal with it really because the price is too high. They're asking. Have you got any thoughts of why Google is it just a commercial play, or is there other reasons why they've invested and seem to be really, I was going to use the word dedicated or driven to keep this going and expand it really?
Yeah, I definitely think, especially in the case for email, it's very much a commercial play because we've had, in the email world, people have been building interactive emails similar to the ones that they showcase in the Gmail blog post for years at this point, using things like HTML and CSS. Nothing special. It's definitely like a hacky thing and technique to implement. But we've done a lot of interactive emails over the years. In the case of Litmus, who I work for, we do a yearly conference and we do announcement emails for that. So we always do an interactive email for that announcement. So we've had things like a live dynamic Twitter feed in an email. We've always have this fun kind of Willy Wonka golden ticket hunt inside of the email itself. People like, there's a company called Rebel that does a full checkout experience inside of email. So you can view products, you can select the different specifications for your product, and you can start that checkout process right in your inbox. So we've had interactive features just using plain HTML and CSS for years at this point. But Google, instead of supporting and investing in those techniques and doing better support for HTML and CSS, they're opting to use their own proprietary version of HTML, which is AMP. So I definitely think it's cool that they're going to add that interactivity to Gmail, but I wish they would have done it with these web standards that we've all been using, which we use for every other email client out there. It definitely seems very commercial because they're kind of tying you into that AMP language. And I think some of the thinking around it too is the people that are building these emails are the ones building websites as well. So if you get them familiar and hooked on AMP, then they're going to start using it on the web as well. So it just kind of feeds into itself. And I feel like if there's one thing that this project has shown is that it's almost solely for Google's benefits, because those AMP pages are, hosted through their servers on their cache. It feeds into the SEO and the search results on Google's pages, and they have a lot of publishers getting really invested in using that AMP project, but they don't do anything for people just using plain HTML and CSS and JavaScript. So one of the stated goals is, that they want the web to be faster, the mobile web especially to be faster, but they don't do anything special for pages that don't use AMP but still perform better than those AMP pages themselves. So it seems very much that it's tied to their commercial interests and their goals of, kind of owning as much of the web as they possibly can, which they own a hell of a lot of it. And so it's a little bit scary that they're pushing something like this and not really supporting people using web standards and still performing up to, their threshold of whatever it might be for those fast load times for pages.
Yes, you put it so well. Well, it's also, our podcast, we get people from various, it has an emphasis on learning management systems and membership, but also emphasis on WordPress. But we get various people, experts like yourself. And what also has been disturbing is that WordPress has also kind of linked their selves to this system as well, which to me seems totally against the stated public principles of WordPress. And it really, a lot of eyes widened when that news was distributed around the WordPress community, and we're waiting to see where that goes.
Yeah, it's definitely weird because, WordPress has always been about, the open source world, and Automatic's done so much to invest in that open source world and sharing of information and stuff. So I get why they're doing it, because there's other CMSs that have supported AMP, and it's, publishers want to use AMP because they do get thrown up into the top of those search results and in that stories carousel on the Google page. So I understand why they're doing it, but it does feel at odds with, the WordPress kind of ethos of being open and sharing code and, using web standards. And I think the same thing's applicable to email too. So it's definitely a weird spot. And I know there's been a lot of reactions, both in the WordPress community and just the web community overall, about how people don't like this AMP project, even though it seems to be kind of slowly eating the world at this point. So it's definitely weird. There was actually I think it's ampletter.org might be the URL, but this AMP letter, which is kind of a open letter to Google for changing how they think about AMP. So it's been signed by hundreds, if not thousands, of people, of individual developers, as well as some pretty large companies as well. Essentially saying, they don't support this vision for AMP, that Google should essentially change two things. One, it should look at HTML and CSS and those page load times, and it should recognize when people are doing good work without using AMP, and it should, celebrate those in the search results so that they get better placement as well. And then the other thing is stop supporting or promoting those AMP only pages in that stories carousel so that it's more even weighting. So there's been a huge backlash against AMP throughout the world, and I'm curious to see if that, changes anything in Google's mind, or if they keep pursuing this the way they are. And it's a weird place to be.
You would have think Google would expand to, in the end, but it's not necessary, because obviously their delve in social media didn't really pan out the way they thought it was going to pan out. So it does, and there's been other projects which they have pursued, and then they've just given up on it, haven't they?
Yep.
So I hope that they'll be truthful about it.
I feel like that's going to be the case for AMP for email specifically, because of those reasons we talked about earlier. It's that third MIME type, that third version you have to build, nobody supports sending that right now. So that's like a huge knock against it. It's only specific to Gmail. So other email clients like Yahoo Mail or Outlook or anything like that, they're not going to see any benefits from this. So they're not going to support those features. And so I feel like it feels very much like, if you remember, Gmail it was grid view for a long time. That was in this like developer preview that made this kind of Pinterest style view of your inbox. That was a similar project that never really got off the ground. People had access to it, but then they just killed it, a year or two later. So I feel like that's what this is going to be. But that being said, the AMP, as much as we kind of rail against AMP on the web and developers talk about, how bad it is for the web, publishers absolutely love it because they do get those SEO benefits. So, maybe this is all just, we're complaining, but nothing's going to happen and it'll stick around and we're all just going to have to bite the bullet and start supporting it regardless of our kind of ethical feelings about it. So we'll definitely see.
It's, I think we're going to go for our break, folks. We're going to get on to some really more, I was going to say more interesting, but that's not the right way to put it, but more happiness, more happy kind of thing we're going to discuss when we come back, folks. We'll see you in a few moments. We've had a great discussion with Jason. Discussing Google, the Death Star, as I call it.
Good description.
And let's go on to something more bright and Lipson. And your involvement with them. Can you just explain what the company does and your role with it?
Sure. Yeah. So Litmus is all about, we build a software platform for email marketers and designers. So most companies are using email to, drive engagement, to drive sales, to really just keep in touch with their customers, with their subscribers. But a lot of companies aren't necessarily doing that well because there's lots of weird things that go wrong in the world of email. There's dozens and hundreds of different email clients like Outlook, Gmail, Yahoo, all these mobile apps and stuff that all display these emails differently. So a large part of our tool is allowing email marketers to see how their emails are going to be displayed in those different email clients. So they can make sure that their email isn't broken, things don't look weird, subscribers get that full good experience that they want. But on top of that, we have a lot of tools for kind of tracking your emails, getting those more advanced analytics than your email service provider who you use to send your email campaigns typically provides. So we have ways to look at, how long people have your emails open, where in the world they're opening them, if they're printing those emails, how many times they open, what email clients they're using to view your emails in, all that kind of stuff that you can use that data to, improve your email campaigns over time. And then we also have a bunch of tools to help people actually design and code their emails a lot better too. So we have a tool called Litmus Builder that is an online code editor that's specific for email design. So it's integrated with our instant previews that allows you to, make a change in your code and your design and then instantly see how that renders across all these different email clients and make sure nothing's broken, all your features work, all that good stuff. So it's very much this platform for, we kind of talk about it internally as this email creative platform. So it gives people the tools they need to just design, code, test, and track better email campaigns than they typically have outside of that system. So I've been involved with Litmus for almost at 5 years now. So I came in to help build a product we have called Litmus Community. That's this free online, essentially a forum and set of resources for people in the email world. So the main bulk of it's these discussions. So there's thousands of different discussions about all kinds of different email topics. So you can go on there and look for if you're, facing a problem. You can search pretty easily and find somebody else that's run into that problem, the solutions for those problems. On top of that, it has a bunch of, code snippets you can use in your own email campaigns. We have free HTML email templates that you can download and use for your own company or your personal projects. There's a job board as well. So if you're in the email industry looking for a new gig, then it's all inside the Litmus community. So it's grown to this huge. We have, thousands and thousands of marketers and developers in there every day that are talking about email, talking about how to improve their campaigns, all that good stuff. So I was brought on to help launch that. So I've been that's been my baby within Litmus. And I've been, very much focused on growing that community, improving those tools for the community, getting better resources to them. So for me, very much my role is about kind of shepherding that community and growing that community, but then really about just educating people about email marketing and email design and development. So there's a lot of, bad practices out there, people sending really bad email campaigns. So my job is essentially to talk to those people, build resources for them and educate them about, improving their own email campaigns, both from like a strategy perspective, as well as like a design and development perspective, so that they're really creating much better experiences for their subscribers. So there's a lot that goes into it. It's a lot of, kind of half product management with the community stuff, the product side, but then also very much kind of a marketing type role, doing a lot of writing for the Litmus blog, talking at our conferences, talking at different events within the industry and running workshops, stuff like that. So it's really all about just educating people about email and using our tools and other tools to send better ones.
That's fascinating. As you were saying this, what you're doing with your company is what a lot of companies should be doing, is that, and it's linked to a learning management system, is you're providing extra value not only in the quality of your products, but also in a way education, aren't you? In a way, aren't you? You are becoming an educational resource, aren't you?
Absolutely, yeah. And we've done that for years before I even joined the company. Litmus was one of those early companies in the email world that was very much about sharing as much as we possibly could, typically through blog posts, but then once the community came around, through the community itself, through all the resources that we provide. But that's always been one of our goals, is share as much information, educate people as much as possible about email, because we found, that it benefits everybody. It benefits the subscribers, most importantly, because they get better emails. It benefits us as a company, because the more we educate people about emails, the more likely they are to, want to send better emails. So they'll start using our tools. And it benefits the people building emails because it makes their jobs a lot easier. So I really like that. I love when companies do things like that. They use their knowledge and share it with the world to improve everybody's lives. And it's good when they do it for free and release a lot of those resources as openly as possible, which is kind of like the WordPress thing. It's a huge community, a lot of people sharing their knowledge with everybody else, and it benefits the entire industry, which is awesome.
Am I correct, by looking over the company's website, you are aimed at the kind of higher marketer, professional level? Would that be correct wording?
I don't think so. I definitely think we speak to a lot of higher end marketers, larger teams, enterprise level customers. But a lot of our customer base is actually, either freelance or like smaller teams and people that are developer focused. They're the ones that typically use our core product, which is that email previews. So we do have a ton of people that are either working on their own or working in very small teams that rely on our tools to, test their email campaigns, track those email campaigns, and improve them going forward. So it's definitely a mix. We have, kind of a basic plan that's geared towards those people that are more about, checking their emails, using Builder, using previews. And then we go up from there into, our Plus and Pro plans that are aimed at larger teams, and then all the way up to enterprise level accounts as well. So it kind of hits on everybody, but our kind of core audience has always been, those kind of individual developers that are in the weeds and working on email day in and day out, as opposed to higher level, like VP of marketing or something like that, that are running those teams themselves.
Right. There seems to be a lot going on in, I had to word this, in email, but it's more about dividing your lists and having systems that can automatically respond to different
Sure.
pathways. Example, Drip, Active Campaign. There's a number of new breed kind of email delivery kind of companies. Do you see that road that they're going down increasing? And what's your overall? Did you expect this to happen, that these new type of email providers would come on the scene?
Yeah, I definitely think it's going to be that kind of mentality of doing more dynamic emails and more personalized emails, and emails that are sent at specific kind of points in that customer journey is going to be increasing. We're coming from a world in email where for a long time, and still for a lot of companies, people kind of take that batch and blast mentality where they just have a list and they send one email out to everybody and hope that it resonates with that entire list. While that kind of technique has worked in the past, our tools are getting a lot more advanced. We have a lot more data. We have better ways to hook into that customer journey and its different points, and use email in those different contexts. So I love when companies are creating tools to do that, to make it easier for everybody to do that, because it typically works a lot better for the company and the customer. So the company is, providing value at very specific points for the customer. And they can tailor that content. They can, feed dynamic copy based on different actions. They can even, in more advanced cases, send completely different designed emails that are kind of dynamically generated using those systems. So anytime you can do that, then you're far more likely to really be able to talk to the customer when they need to be talked to and provide the content that they need at that specific time. So I definitely think that trend's going to be increasing, and I think it's better for everybody in the long run. It typically requires like a little bit different skill set than a lot of email marketers have. Because you do need to understand data better. You need to understand those customer life cycles. You need to understand the business. A lot of times you need to understand more of the development process, how those systems work, how they tie into your own applications, how APIs work, stuff like that. But once you kind of gain those skills and understand them a lot better, then, you can create these really interesting email programs that are hugely influential and can really drive your business and create a lot of value for subscribers, which is awesome.
Oh, that's great, Jason. I think we're going to wrap up the podcast
Sure.
part of the show, folks. I stumbled there. But we're going to be continuing the interview with Jason, which you can view on the WP-Tonic website. With a full set of show notes, actually, folks, with the links to everything we've discussed. Jason, it's been a pleasure so far. I think we've covered, and hopefully in the bonus content, we'll cover some other topics. I feel we've only scratched, Vince. It's amazing how time goes. How can people find out more about you, your services, and what you're up to?
Sure. So the best place for me personally is probably my website, which is rodriguez.j.com. Comma is spelled out. I always thought that was a fun URL, and it's kind of become my online handle since then. I have my own newsletter, so if you want to subscribe and kind of keep up with me there, that's awesome. I'm at rodriguez.j on Twitter. And then for Litmus, definitely check out litmus.com. Litmus.com/community is the community that we were talking about. It's free to join. You can learn all kinds of stuff about email design, marketing, coding, all that stuff. And then I'd be remiss if I didn't mention I released my most recent book about email design and marketing back in November. So you can check that out. It's thebetter.email/design. So it's a full, 225-page book. There's over 6 hours of video lessons if you want to learn more about marketing and specifically design and development for email. Definitely check that out. But yeah, just hit me up on Twitter, website, or litmus.com, and I would love to chat.
And Jason's very approachable, aren't you?
Yeah, I hope so. Yeah.
Yeah, you are. It's much appreciated, Jason. So
yeah,
before we wrap it up, if you want to get hold of us at WP-Tonic, it's really easy. Go to the WP-Tonic website. Go to our Facebook page as well. All the videos are on there, and I'll be adding some more content. If you really want to support the show, Twitter to Kinster or buy one of their packages. They're, like I say, a great hosting company. And if you're very generous, give us a review on iTunes, good, bad, or indifferent. I always check them, and I periodically read out our latest reviews, and it really does help the show, folks. Thank you for listening. It's been, we'll be back next week with somebody doing something online that's interesting. We'll see you next week, folks. Bye. Yeah, it's, I had to take this conversation. There's so many areas.
Yeah.
There's a lot of flack about email not being that effective anymore. Text messaging, seems to be the star rising. Everybody opens their text messages, but what's your response to that general statement? And secondly, are there any trends that you see email going at the present moment?
Yeah, so the first part of that's interesting because a lot of people do talk about that, the kind of death of email and email being dead. There's so many blog posts about it, and it's always in favor of social media marketing or native marketing using apps, things like that. But if you look at the data, that's absolutely not true in any way, shape, or form. So email,
we live in a new age.
Data always lies, yeah.
So data doesn't matter, does it?
Yeah. But we have found, and there's a lot of people doing a lot of research around it, that email is better than it's ever been. So there's more email being sent every day than there ever has before. There's the return on investment using email over other marketing channels is massive. So a few years ago, there was a study. I'd have to find like the more recent numbers, but even a couple of years ago, you would, for every dollar invested on email, you'd get something like $35 in return, where the next closest was, I don't know, social media or direct mail or something like that. And that was like $20 or something like that ROI. So email has always been outperforming other marketing channels. But I think the thing that kind of kills us is that it's been around for so long. And that's where some of these, email's dead kind of things comes from. And people always like, shiny new toys and like being on the cutting edge and stuff. And email is very rarely on the cutting edge for most people. So that's why you see a lot of these things. But email is not going anywhere anytime soon. It is still far and away one of the most valuable marketing channels you can use. And I think the case for that, or the reason behind that, is that I always think of email as kind of the online gatekeeper. So to use things like Twitter, to use Facebook, to use all these apps, you need an email address to sign up. So everybody has an email address. Everybody uses email. It's kind of like this holy space online that your inbox is. Like your home online, you get messages from all these companies, but you get messages from family and friends. So everybody has this email address. It's this very active place in their lives. It's the cornerstone of the online experience for most people. So once you understand that, you can kind of extrapolate that it's not going anywhere anytime soon, despite the proclaimed death of email from all these blog pundits. And you have companies like Slack that are trying to kill email with messaging. But they haven't done it yet, and I don't see them doing it anytime soon.
Well,
so
how to put it? It's supposed to replace email in a certain area where email, I don't think, ever was designed, which is
that's true.
Intense project management corporation. And it was never designed for that in the first place. And it was used because it was the best thing to use. And I think for that particular scenario, Slack or a competitor platform is perfect. But on the other hand, to suggest that it replace non-type team discussion is probably a bit over-exaggerated.
It's a bit of a stretch,
Yes. But it's the internet. What can you say?
Yeah, that is true, yeah. The thing I don't like about Slack is that unless you're paying for it, and even when you're paying for it, there's it's really hard to do like deep searches or find something historically, like, because it's just this stream. So it's hard to kind of search and stuff. So even in those team settings, at Litmus we use Slack every day, and there's still a lot of work that happens over email or through like Basecamp or Trello or something like that, because it has such a better historical record of that work happening. But getting to your second question was, what are some of these trends that I see coming down the road? And I think the two that are going to keep being talked about and become bigger. The first one is that interactive email, and this is something that's been increasing over the past couple of years. So this is, providing richer experiences inside of the inbox, inside of people's emails, whether that's, something like an image carousel, date pickers, calendar invites, things like that, all the way up through retail experiences and being able to shop directly through your inbox. That's something that's been getting a lot of focus from the email world, and it's slowly been getting more buy-in from especially retailers. I think that trend is going to keep increasing over the next couple of years, and people are going to get more comfortable with receiving those types of emails and then actually using them, actually getting that rich experience and taking some sort of action inside of their inbox. And then the second one, I think, is tied to that one question you asked me about, like Drip or these more advanced email tools and providing this more personalized experience. That personalization is going to get a lot better over time too, and we're going to see more companies taking advantage of, better data about their customers, and then using that data to find what kind of emails they actually receive. So it's more personalized beyond. A lot of people think of personalized emails as having your name in the subject line or your name in the body of the email. This is taking it to that kind of hyper personalization where you will get a custom email design or custom copy tailored to whatever you were doing when you triggered that email campaign. So those more hyper personalized emails are going to be a lot bigger going forward too.
I think it also can sound a bit frightening, but what we're just talking about is, if you've got a website and you've got a couple of lead magnets, that maybe those that sign up for the beginner kind of product get a series of drip email focus at the beginner, and then if you've got a more intermediate lead magnet, that they don't get the same email as the beginners, because they wouldn't have much value to those people.
Exactly. Yeah. So being able to, it's kind of like making this forked path within your email system. So I think a lot more people are going to get smarter about doing that stuff. And when you do that, it's just better for everybody in the long run, because your subscribers do get that value.
Because that's one of the main things.
People too. Yeah.
Oh, sorry, I overtalked. I apologize. But one of the main thing is that, back to these big lists and you just blast it, is that's why a lot of people unsubscribe, because it has no value to them.
Exactly.
Sending something to somebody that has no value is a bit of a waste of time for you and a bit of a waste of time for them.
That's why everybody calls us spammers. Everybody, like, if you tell somebody you work in the email industry, they're like, "Oh, you send spam then?"
No, you must hate that when I say that.
Yeah, everybody hates that. Yeah. But that's where that kind of that image comes from, is people just batching their lists and blasting them out with emails that have nothing to do with what they're interested in or provides any value whatsoever. So I think we're definitely getting better about that, and that kind of better personalization is the way to go, so that we kind of move beyond that spam type mentality and try to provide better value for everybody.
Yeah. What about video? How do you see video progressing with email as well?
Yeah, so I always get asked that question, because that's kind of the holy grail in email.
I'll never promise originality of my questions, Joe.
Yeah. No worries. But it's a very common question, because people do want to use video, because video typically has really high engagement rates, and that's one of those things publishers are investing more and more in. So everybody's always asking, how can we send a video in an email? So there's not really a good way to do it now, because the typical way you do that online is use something like Flash to play the video, or the HTML5 video tag, which most browsers support that now. But email clients today don't support those technologies inside of email, so you can't really get a good email playing in a video. There might be one or two clients that allow you to do that, but everybody else is going to fall back to just an image or something. Which is fine. If you want to send an email with a video, you can do it for some clients, and you're just kind of progressively enhancing for those email clients. But my question when people ask me that question, my response is usually, what is your goal with the video? Do you just want somebody to watch that video and that's it? Or do you want them to take some action after seeing that video? So if that's the case, I would say in 99.9% of all cases, they want somebody to take an action after watching that video or during watching that video. There's some goal tied to that video besides just viewing it. So email's not the place to do that. Even though things are getting more interactive in email, you don't have the level of reporting or the options you have like you would on a website for engaging people. So even if you could get an email or a video displayed in email, it might not serve your goals. It might not serve your purposes because they can't do much after that video plays.
I think you stated that so coherently. It's the same thing as, you've got video playing in, say, Facebook.
Yep.
You normally want them to go somewhere or do something.
Yeah.
What you really don't want is obviously
so,
brand awareness is a good thing, but you normally want them to do something, don't you?
Exactly, yeah. So I usually suggest when people want to use video and email, they either they do one of two things. They either just display a video, like a still from that video with like a play button. And then when they click on that, it takes them to a landing page, which you have far better control over. Or a second option is to use an animated GIF, and that gives you a movie-like experience because you have that animation, and most email clients support that now. But still, when they click on that or they click a button or a CTA later down in the email, it still dumps them to a landing page where you have better control over that experience and tracking what they're doing and providing better options for them. So kind of do like fake video and email if you want. If you want movement, use an animated GIF or use like CSS animations or something like that. But your goal is typically to get them to landing page on your website so that you can better serve them. So, yeah.
The other thing, I'm sorry to bring this up, is back to Google and the notorious decision about the marketing folder and that. How's that playing out, and how has the email industry coped with that? And when was that first announcement made? It's probably over a couple of years now. Time flies.
So are you talking about like the different tabs that Google has for? Yeah. So there was a huge reaction in the email world. A lot of people really scared of that. But we haven't really seen, looking at the data, it hasn't been a bad thing for email marketers in the long run. Not everybody still uses that interface. A lot of people are still using that kind of typical inbox view through Gmail, and a lot of other providers have done that kind of tabbed interface. But when they do that, it's almost helpful for email marketers. Even if your stuff gets dumped into that marketing tab, it's still, that's what it is. It's a marketing email, so it's not like you're trying to be something that you're not being, like that you actually are. You're a marketer sending that email, and a lot of people do use that to kind of classify those emails, and then they can spin through them whenever they want to, which is helpful. But a lot of people are worried about, people not seeing their emails, but that hasn't really proven out to be the case. Or a lot of people were worried about getting classified that and then having people go through and just mass unsubscribe from their emails. So my response to that is people worrying about unsubscribes in general, but especially in the case of Gmail, classifying your emails, is you shouldn't worry about it because it's better for people to unsubscribe from your emails than to keep them on a list and not have them engage. Keeps your lists a lot cleaner, so you know that the people on your list are actually the ones that want your email campaigns. And it's a hell of a lot better having somebody look at that, say, this is marketing email, I'm going to unsubscribe from it, than them getting that in their like important view or their main inbox and not wanting you there and then clicking the spam button and reporting you as spam, because that's going to hurt your sender reputation. So yeah, there are a lot of people that were really scared about that change, and other companies have rolled out similar features, and marketers typically get very scared by those things because it usually affects their list numbers. But in the long run, I think it's a really healthy thing for the email community because it creates better, cleaner lists that you're sending to, and it provides good functionality for subscribers. Similar to that, we talked about AMP and how I personally think it's a bad development for the email world and the web world. But when it comes down to it, I'm not I subscribe to emails, but I'm not like the core user of Gmail. It's those consumers that are using Gmail. And if they want those interactive experiences and Google delivers them via AMP, then we need to just deal with it because
Yeah.
it's serving the user. You should always be serving the user. You should always be looking at adding value for your subscribers. So even if we don't like the way that's happening, we can talk about it. We can try to change it. But at the end of the day, we have to deal with it and provide that value for subscribers. And same thing happens with those tabs. If consumers want it and they're classifying their emails that way, then we just got to deal with it.
Yeah, another question. With dealing with clients and that, when you talk about email, one company comes up regularly, especially in the small side of the business sector, and that's MailChimp.
Yep.
And their free service. I have certain views about that, but I'm not an email expert. What's your general attitude about MailChimp and their free service, and when do you think it's the right tool, and when do you think you might be better off looking at maybe different companies or a paid service?
Sure. I mean, I have friends at MailChimp, and I think they have an amazing service, amazing tool. They've definitely kind of democratized email marketing and made it a lot easier for people to take advantage of email, whereas, there were other services, other tools that were far too complicated for most people to understand and start using. So in that sense, I think it's absolutely awesome. And I love that they have that free service and allow people to send those emails. That being said, I feel like they're definitely working hard recently on kind of expanding what they offer and creating more powerful, especially tools around like marketing automation and personalization, stuff like that. So that's awesome. If you want to start paying for those, then their tools are excellent. They're relatively new, so I know they're adding a lot of features and kind of growing those tools and their competency in that area. Coming up, it's a big focus for the company. So if you're comfortable with it and you started on MailChimp, then I would recommend kind of sticking with it. You're familiar with their interface. You're familiar with the company. They deliver your emails really well and they make it really easy. But there are some cases where you might want to look at other tools, especially I feel like for most small businesses, something like MailChimp or Campaign Monitor or MailerLite, there's all these tools that are great and you should stick with them. They provide most things you need.
MailLite is amazing for what they offer, really, for their free program. It's quite... Ooh.
Yeah, there's a lot of companies out there that provide amazing tools, and that might be all you ever need. But when you start working with like larger teams and larger organizations, that's when bigger tools are needed. Things like, Salesforce Marketing Cloud, Adobe's Watson campaign, Pardot, things like that, that have far more advanced tools, because a lot of that magic comes into play when you start getting developers involved and using their APIs and using their logic that they have built in, tracking more data in those programs and syncing that data between your application and those email service providers. That's when you might want to start looking into that stuff, when you start wanting to do more advanced things and need to kind of tie in developers and do it programmatically.
Well, we help a lot of membership and learning management websites support and help them develop. And the two that a lot of people moved from infusion, confusion. I used to call it confusion. So and they've moved to Drip or Active Campaign. There seem to be, and there's a couple others, but they seem to be the two that come up in conversation. Yeah. And they definitely seem to, because the other products that you mentioned are tremendous and powerful, but they really are top tier, aren't they?
Yeah, a lot of them get really expensive too. So if you have the team and the money to spend, then you can accomplish a lot with them. But most smaller people, especially I imagine for like educational stuff, don't have the budget for.
Well, they do. Some of them do very well.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
But it's like small teams where they're looking at Drip and Drip or Active Campaign. But they have definitely kind of re-energized the whole kind of email area. Lee Page's bought Drip, and we see how that goes. I think we'll wrap it up now. Thank you so much, Jason.
Sure. Yeah, thank you for having me.
So, I think we've covered a lot of stuff. Just for our listeners and viewers, on the website and our YouTube channel. Once again, how can people get hold of you?
Sure. You can find me at my website, rodriguez-j.com. So it's comma spelled out. I'm on Twitter at rodriguez-j. If you want to learn more about email marketing, design, coding development, my most recent book was released back in November. That's the better.email/design. There's book and video tutorials that'll get you up to speed on modern email development practices. And then you can always find me hanging out in the Litmus community. It's litmus.com/community. And if you want to learn more about email, that's a great place to do it as well.
Oh, thank you so much, Jason. We're going to wrap it up now, folks, and hopefully you'll join us next week where we'll be interviewing somebody that's doing something online that's really interesting. We'll see you soon, folks. Bye.